What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. And well, today we'll be doing a Sunday market breakdown. As you can see, we are just a few, well, it was an hour when I wanted to start this, but we are a few minutes into market open, just call it 1 hour post market open. And well, let's dive into the charts just before they move, right? So without any further ado and wasting any time, let's get down to it. So, I'm not going to be doing much analyzing with you guys. It's just going to be charts that are already marked up and we're going to be breaking them down. So starting with DXY on the weekly, right, important. What we can clearly see is that we had this clear impulsive run over there and we've been in this larger correction ever since. And this is when now we get the actual confirmation for the run, right? And when we actually got the turnaround point where we triggered into this back end structure right over here of this potentially at this point, this was actually anticipated to be a potential correction to the upside, which it failed, and the point of entry there of area of interest is now became the back end retest of the structure over here, right? Even well, if that flew over your head, that's fine too. Of which, because you could have just looked at price from this point of view that this has been and was your value area. Price broke out, it broke back in. That's the most important part. Broke out and broke back in. So now it gives you access to play within this run to move to the downside. So I guess this wasn't a surprise that we had this sell-off after that, right? So getting that out of the way, I believe I've covered everything in terms of breaking down how the structure is looking, our positioning and so on, and what we can look forward into the next week is that, okay, fine. We have this clear impulsive run to the downside, right? And now we have built volume here and we've clearly pushed away from there. And what we can anticipate is that price is going to trickle back all the way to up there, which is our current new value area, and move down after actually building enough volume to accommodate this impulse to move to the downside. So I hope that makes sense and it's out of the way. Now we have access to move down to the daily. So now moving down to the daily time frame, this is what I mean, that the volume was built in this area, although this was slightly steeper structure, right? We'll get to see the structural part of it as we move down. The volume was actually built here, okay? For looking at everything and actually adding this into the picture where we're having this larger pullback, and that's just a sign that we might be looking to slightly, build something quite larger enough to accommodate the move to the downside. Maybe there's 2 tests that we're anticipating, right? So now, given that all that is clear, and also before we move, don't forget the fact that we are still playing 50% of the whole entire impulsive run to the downside. So that still marks everything confirmed, okay? You can also still say that we are also playing below this previous area of interest, even though it's far away. We don't need to pay attention to it now, but we don't know. Maybe we might also get a back end retest into that, where that's now where you might actually get to see them play out live, because those are one of the most, I can't say profitable moves, but more consistent and confirmed moves that we get in Falcon. So now getting to where we are talking about the steeper structure, as you can see, price has been trickling out of our previous value area. Actually, everything started here, where you would have initially anticipated this and it actually failed, right? And this was actually the sort of your extreme point, the last inflection point in the structure. And you can see everything did not hold, and building onto that, now you end up with this, and this is the steeper part of the pattern that I'm referring to, that we had it, and that's where the volume was built. This doesn't necessarily have to be there anymore. It can be cleared. So now what can be expected of price to do if we are to continue up there is sort of get that, continuation over there, either 2 touch or 3 touch. Give it anyways, it'd still be confirmed given that we have our clear impulsive run. And now this is where we would be anticipating the correction to give us access to confirm that, okay, the dollar is going to slightly trickle all the way up there. We don't know how it's going to arrive there, either structurally or correctively or impulsively. and we wait for the washout. Of course, that's the most important part. Also, we get the break back into structure, then you get your confirmations and you move down. So that's sort of like the whole entire clear picture expected from DXY probably in the next week or couple of weeks, right? Which is something like this. It does whatever. This is just the quickest way to actually complete the analysis. There's the washout. Then you get that clear bull flag, 3-touch most preferable, of course. You get clearance for the run, right? So we'll get to see how this forecast plays out. And I believe we are concluding with everything that we need to clear on DXY. And we can move down to our actual pair selection, right? So I need to rename this because this is within actually my normal sort of like setup. So this is where I usually have my executions, but I'll call it our top 4 for now. I'll save it and actually, I'll return it back to normal once it's actually time to be active. So now getting into GU and directly diving back to the weekly, which is where we normally start our actually sort of play. By the way, before we move on, I also want to touch on something that also Mark covered in the recent video that he dropped on YouTube, where once you have these 3 consecutives, what you call engulfing candles in a row, right? You can anticipate larger corrections to form or maybe steeper moves, which then explained why this was the steeper move and he actually avoided it. I fell for the trap, he avoided it, and we actually get to find out, okay, this was the lead to why he had to avoid any, what can you say, temptation to be involved in such a steeper move, which actually increases the risk on the portfolio, right? So that's just what I wanted to get back to. We need to be a little bit quick on this one also, because I see the time has run down and wasted most of the time on DXY, but maybe that was necessary as we won't waste much more time on these ones, right? Of which you can clearly see, okay, if I just zoom out so you can actually see where this originates from. It originates from this volume belt area over here, sort of like steeper pullback, and we move down, which was the breakout of this. So yes, it's our volume belt area, volume confirmed, and we did trigger back into that. We got all the necessary candlesticks. That's why we delivered the run, right? So we just needed to clear that out of the way so you can see where that comes from. That would have been your initial, of course, value area. It didn't actually hold, but you know why? Price had to seek a better value area. Also, another addition in. Sorry for being a little bit too quick, guys, but we didn't also fill 50% of the previous signaling candle, right? The confirmation didn't fill 50%, so that would have been another sign. So looking at the current price action, which is our interest, right? Our main interest, of course, you could just, from the weekly, what we can see is that we had this volume area built here where we would have expected price to do something, but as you can see, we clearly broke out and we were playing above for some time, and we got that sort of like washout from this value area and we sort of pushed back in. That will all make sense on the daily, actually, because I'm just, sort of concluding everything as I already know the picture. This will also get to make clear, it will also get to make sense as we move down, right? So getting down to the daily, you can clearly see that aggressive push over there back into structure with this aggressive, call it an engulfing. It's no longer a retrace. This is a full engulfing of the whole entire previous price action, right? So now to find out where this also comes from, you can see that it developed from this way. This was your clear impulse, and this is where you had your 2-touch volume building structure over there. We had the clear push away, and now it's sort of confirmed, right? We clearly, even though we clearly sort of broke out of that value area, we now broke back in. So without this insight, this over here, it still makes sense as to that we're expecting dollars to be bearish for the upcoming week. just as we expected the DXY to be bullish, direct inverse correlation. That's why we had to do that anyway. As you remember, the DXY, as we said, is for directional purposes, and we get to apply that here, right? So that's even much more clear that this was sort of like your value area before we actually broke above and played and did whatever we did. So now I believe that we have access to the 4-hour, and we can just mark the base, right? Which is this. This is currently sort of our inflection point, which any positions would have been taken here and here. You'd likely sort of try to liquidate here at maximum potential. So before those larger corrections develop, which is what we are anticipating into the next week. So yeah, maybe the upcoming week might be a week of waiting, where we do a lot of waiting in terms of waiting for price action to give us more data to work with and sort of develop more in order to complete this 1, 2, 3 phase to move down, right? So to solidify everything, also to show you where this came from, of which it would have gave you access to trading this, even though it had broke above this value area, which was clearly obvious to everybody. This other one over here, which was for sure all the way back on the 1 hour, that's where you can actually see it. It's actually, call it the extreme of all inflection points that we had here, because we had a bunch of them. And on the 1 hour, you can actually sort of see this is where we had that last sort of like scoop, deeper pullback, and we've been trickling ever since, right? So it would have been clear from there that that is actually the level that you should look at. Even on the 4-hour, it's even evident that it's there. So that's where price actually triggered into for you to experience this trade. So you can go look at those as sort of like a sort of like knowledge enrichment on your side, to experiment with what we are kind of like sharing with you as Falcon students, right? So obviously EU is the direct inverse correlation of DXY, although of course the candles are not going to be candle for candle, but we are sort of like building the same concept in terms of looking at the whole entire structure, right? So there's that clear sort of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We're clearly within phase 3, which is the impulsive run, and we're trying to see if it can complete that A to B run up to there. Either you initiate it from here, or the origin of the move where it triggered at the last inflection point over there. Still, this is your A to B run, right? Now I believe also we do have access to move down, but just building on just like we did with DXY from the daily perspective, you can see the push break out of this previous value area. We build in the volume there, of which we pushed up, and now we are anticipating this sort of like, pull back into this, and we build enough volume to move to the upside. So this will still be the same picture from the daily perspective, nothing different, honestly speaking, just making it look a little bit cleaner. Okay, so we can sort of see that, this is actually a whole entire week on the weekly, right? So price just slightly tried to close below our previous sort of, I can't call it an invalidation point, call it an inflection point, yes. So we are trying to see from the lower time frames now if we are going to get a continuation here, or even preferably, quite preferably below here. This is where we would want it to be. Actually gives us access to get there, complete the 2 touch, and we actually move up. So now let's quickly rush to the 4-hour. So we actually have time to cover these before the 20 minutes countdown is over, right? So I do not really want to rush into, sort of breaking this down on the 1 hour already, because it's not really clear as to what is happening right now. So we do need that confirmational move to see where price is heading, because this is sort of like premature for me. Although, yes, as you dive down to the 15, you do kind of like see it being there. I'm not really confident this will be the position, because you can see it's gonna literally open into it, and maybe you can take it at the break, given that it does sort of like consolidate during the swap hours, even like during the AMs. Two comes back into that during like London session, during that time where you need to be active, and maybe that's when you can actually engage. So yes, that is slightly possible, but I do anticipate something slightly stronger given what we are expecting on DXY and GU, right? So let's quickly dive down to EG, Euro GBP, Euro Sterling Pound, and see what it has for us. And this one, honestly speaking, even from the daily, we have everything confirmed. We're just waiting for the confirmational candlestick, okay? So this is going to be like those quick breakdowns where we quickly rush through it. But we can, looking at it from the, call it the weekly time frame, we clearly have this value area. This is the origin of the move, okay? Sorry. This is the origin of the move. So we do expect something to happen once price gets back into here. Either we do get that major reversal because also we have been trickling down correctively. That's another sign. Or we do break down and we get that sort of continuation and we move. So this is what we want to like look at, like where we want to pay most of our attention. What happens when we get here, right? Besides what we expect to happen, we want to see what the market will do, so we deal with what the market has actually done from what we expected. So we also have this clear gap over here, obvious, so it has to be filled in terms of coming back to this area, right? And also adding on to that, just the weekly builds onto everything. There's your impulse, sort of your correction over there, and we move down. Yes, it's larger than 50%, but remember, we're all the way down in the run. If you're taking this as your peak, and this is where we sort of like, also it's given that we are also on the higher time frame, so I don't think there's much importance in terms of looking at the fib there relative to the structure, because it's going to be applied within this A to B run over there, of which again there comes back those back end retests. So I want you guys to really go look into that and how it actually comes into the play with the Falcon mechanics or Falcon system. Now, breaking down everything on the daily, we do have that clear one over there. Call it a 1, 2, okay, 3 over there with another internal 1, 2, 3 meeting into it up there. So more confluence adding up to that area of interest, and to just bonus everything, we have this sort of where we had a push down volume building, we broke down. This is the back end of that structure. We retested it now with this over here. So we literally have most of the confluences to mark this as like a high probability trade. And the last thing that we wait for, we do not want to quickly engage ourselves within here, is at least a 50% retrace of this whole entire candle. And once the next daily candle closes here, we can look for access on the lower time frames to actually, get the entire run. So this will be actually ended here, and we can quickly jump into gold just to save the last 2 minutes for it, right? And to break down everything straight from the daily. We don't even have to go to the weekly here. Previous major high, we broke above it, we are playing above it. Same thing over here. We broke above it, we are playing above it. But now, look what we did. We left this sort of footprint over here to sort of see what the market is going to do once we get there. We're breaking below and we start moving down, looking into other areas, or this is where we're going to bounce and start moving higher on gold, right? So we can quickly rush down to the 4 hour because we have about a minute left. And just to show you, there we go, right? We have that impulse, that sort of steeper pullback, volume build area. There's the push. Now price is trickling all the way down into that area to sort of get that. And if it is impulsive into that area, if it keeps on like this, it doesn't provide any structure here. Obviously, the insurance entry to play the move to the upside is the way to go, right? So we can just mark that over there. And yeah, guys, we have 28 seconds and counting, and that's just where we ended. Okay, hope this is helpful to you guys. If you do enjoy the content, Please do engage with me in the comment section on what kind of content you'd like to see. And yeah, we'll work on that and we'll grow the YouTube channel. So yeah, guys, shout out. See you on the next one where we talk about fibs.